Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast with your host Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy. Today's podcast is a briefing on parallel universes and kind of the Mandela effect. This doesn't have too much to do with Scientology. I just wanted to make this because I was listening to the interview with, I think it's Artie Marin or Arnie Marin, and it's the one. It's about 8 years ago now. It's the one where the Russian people are interviewing him. He's dead now, but this guy. He was like a top Scientologist, and he was doing like geo activities, and he was seemed fairly close to L. Ron Hubbard and Captain Bill. Anyway, I'd seen this video about like a year and a half ago, and then I was watching it a few days ago, and I was like, oh, this is different to what I remember. And so again, it was like another instance of the Mandela effect. And I was just like, oh my God, it's just so wild. I just thought I should make a video on it. And so in the past few days, I've been studying up on parallel universes and stuff. And I mean, like, scientists and mathematicians believe in this stuff, because they've got the formulas that back it up and stuff. And it seems like a guy called Hugh Everett is like the main guy to sort of discover and to like scientifically, like mathematically prove the existence of parallel worlds and stuff. And it just, even though I guess his mathematics all works out and stuff, because it's such a wild idea. It's just, it blows people's fixed ideas too much. It's not like it's fully accepted amongst the scientific community, because it's just too out there idea. I guess it's like the science community's equivalent of me saying there's reptilians that are working under Area 51 with our government. Or probably a better one is like saying that the moon is like an artificial satellite and it's been towed here. It's like that sort of, but it's even bigger than that. But it seems like, I mean, I can't be bothered becoming a mathematician, doing all the years of studying or whatever. But it seems like this guy, Hugh Everett, like apparently is, you know, like as famous as Einstein and stuff, by people who actually know their stuff, and that he's right. And he's had a huge discovery on the whole parallel universes and all this sort of stuff. So I just don't really have the time to study his book or whatever, but I imagine that if I did study it, I would be thinking, wow, yeah, he's actually proving scientifically how these things exist. I'm not into that whole area, that area, because for me, when it comes to parallel universes and Mandela effects and stuff, I just look in the real world for evidence, like not mathematical evidence like that they're looking for, but I just look for actual evidence of people saying, hey, I remember the past as being different to this. Like that to me is evidence, right? And a mathematician, I don't know what it is, whatever they do, they calculate something and they go, this is evidence, see? So you put them together and you discover that parallel universes exist and stuff. So I don't know, I just think it's such a big thing that people need to be aware of. Like, it's just the whole Mandela effect and stuff is just such a wild and epic and deep thing. So with that, Arnie, I think it's Arnie Lerma or Artie Marin or something, that video, he's an old man in the video. He's sitting down, like, just in case you're looking for it. I totally recommend people to watch it. In fact, I'll put the link in the comment section. I mean, he talks about some really interesting stuff, some really deep stuff. And I mean, I don't think he's right about everything he's talking about, but I think it's pretty interesting info. But when I listened to it like a year and a half ago, I remember it being like around 48 minutes long, and it didn't quite have as much information in it. But now suddenly it's like an hour and 25 minutes long, and it's got more information in it. And so I was just watching it and I was just like, what the hell? This is not what it was like a year and a half ago or whatever. Like, it wasn't as epic. It's more epic in this universe that I'm in. And so, I seem to be, and I think this it happens to other people, but I think it's happening to me more than other people. I seem to be switching from, I seem to be switching between my parallel universes, because apparently there are these parallel universes. There are universes that are just like this, and there are other versions of you in them, in these other ones. So you're duplicated. There's heaps of yous. And so I seem to be able to, I guess my attention's focused in the Andy that's in this universe right now. And then a year and a half ago, I was in the universe where this video that I'm talking about was only 48 minutes long. And I still think I'm the same person. So I've went from that universe now into this universe, and I've kept my memories and everything. And so I'm switching into different parallel universes. And this might have something to do with me using postulates and me like desiring something. And so then I switch into the parallel universe where I desire that thing. So let's say, because I had been doing a bit of praying and a bit of like using a secret where you focus your attention on what you want. So for example, I'm like selling something secondhand online or whatever. So I want to sell it, you know what I mean? So then I'll use a secret, I'll focus my attention on it, and I'll, I guess, vision myself, I don't know if that's the right word, visualize myself successfully selling that thing I'm selling online. I'm selling like an old iPhone SE at the moment. But I mean, I do stuff like that basically. I mess around with prayer and that sort of stuff. And so I could be switching my vibration, and I could be popping myself into a parallel universe where somebody wants that thing that I'm selling. I don't know, I think this might actually be the secret to postulates, and this is why I want to bring this up as well, is because the reason why you can have a postulate and it can suddenly appear like magic is because you might be vibrating, right, when you're really postulating properly and you're like, you really believe that, you vibrate and you go and you switch into the parallel universe where like cats are cheaper. Like let's say you're trying to buy a cat and you want to buy a cheap cat. You don't want to spend a lot. So maybe you have the prayer, I want to buy a cheap cat or whatever. Or you have the postulate, and you start really believing it, I'm going to get a cheap cat. Like, you really have your intention on that. Like, nah, you really expect it. I'm going to get a cheap cat. And then at that moment, your attention switches from this version of yourself into the parallel universe where cheap cats exist version, and you open your eyes and you don't even notice that you switch, because the universes are like running on the exact same time and everything's the same except for a cheap cat. So the only thing you notice is that cats are cheaper. That's the only thing that's giving away that you've gone into the parallel universe, right? But I personally think that sometimes when you switch into the parallel universe using this postulate and intention thing, I think that there are some side effects, like suddenly you'll notice like the concrete near your house has a little crack in it, or just like odd little things. The other day, I noticed cracks in concrete, like at the entrance to my house, and I'd swept there plenty of times before, and I saw 2 cracks, and I was like, I don't remember there being 2 cracks here in the concrete. Like 2 cracks? And I was like, I didn't even remember 1 crack. But if it was 1 crack, I would say, okay, cool, it's just like something I wouldn't remember. But I was like, 2 cracks? And so I'm just like, what the hell? So it's kind of like, maybe because of the Scientology auditing I've done and the other funky spiritual practices that I've done, and using postulates, I've cracked open some ability in myself to change into parallel universes where what happens is what I would like. And I get side effects, like other things are different, like that video I was telling you is also, I noticed, is different. And I'm like, what the hell? So I don't know what's really going on, but Chris Shelton can laugh all he wants and the skeptics can laugh all they want, but there's hardcore science backing this whole parallel universe idea up, like full-on mathematics and shit. So Chris Shelton can say Scientologists have funky beliefs, but his science community has funky-ass beliefs, like really out there stuff. And they're just trying to find out the truth, and it seems that no matter what community you're from, like, I guess, whatever group, whenever people start trying to find out the truth, the truth is outrageous. It's not boring. It's not like, oh, a big bang happened and then life evolved and that's it. It's not like a normal story. It's like a full-blown, complex, almost not able to be understood sci-fi movie or something. Which is, yeah, so it's really out there, and all I'm saying is that I like the idea of people mentioning the Mandela effect and parallel universe idea as much as possible, so that the mainstream science people, or the science people who actually do the mathematics and all this stuff, can realize, no, they're onto something. Like, there is something to this. People are remembering things being different. And you can criticize the concrete thing all you want, and that's not something that I would particularly remember too much. But, I mean, I'm serious. Like, when I heard about Sex and the City being referred to as Sex and the City, I was like, why'd they change the name? Like, I straight away picked up on it. I was like, I remember it being called Sex in the City, and it was never Sex and the City, and I thought Sex and the City sounded shit. And plenty of people remember Sex in the City. And the same with the Ford logo. Now the Ford logo has a little squiggly line in it. And if you ask people, you survey people on the street, they all pick the Ford logo with the straight line as what they think the Ford logo is. You tell them it's a squiggly line one, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And they think nothing of it. But when you know about the Mandela effect, you're like, hold on a second, everyone is remembering the straight line, like pretty much everyone is remembering the straight line version. So what the F is going on? So I think, this is what's really weird as well, because it's not just, I think en masse people are switching into parallel universe versions of themselves, or there's some sort of combining of universes going on or something. But individually, I think that I have unique, different experiences with the Mandela effect. Like maybe it's like the average person experiences a few Mandela effects. Well, I experience like way more than a few. So whatever ability that is, I'm experiencing it much more. Apparently Hubbard talked about, I haven't read it anywhere, like I read it just one or two things referenced it, but apparently in the PDCs, Hubbard's mentioned something about alternate universes and parallel universes. And I'd love to find that and read it to see what Hubbard has to say about it. But it's something that's wild. I mean, I know it's not bad memory, because I'm telling you, I mean, I forget heaps of things all the time, but when it comes to the Mandela effect, it's like certain things that are like, no, this is what it was, and now it's different. You know, and so with the Ford logo, I'm not saying the Ford company released a new logo. No, throughout the whole history, Ford logo has a squiggly line in it. So you're just like, what the hell is going on? We switched into a parallel universe where 100 years ago, they decided on that squiggly line. The most famous one is the line, Luke, I am your father, from Star Wars. People are like, nah, I remember, Luke, I am your father. But now, in this reality, it's, no, I am your father. And then people are like, what the hell, that's ridiculous. It's really out there. There's a famous double split experiment that's spoken of a lot when it comes to quantum mechanics and all that sort of stuff. And I'll just explain it to you because it'll let you know how we're living in a magical world. So quantum physics is like really, really small physics, right? It's like going down to the atom size or even smaller or whatever. And that's why they call it quantum, I guess. It just means really tiny. And so with this split experiment, they would have like a sheet of paper or something with two holes in it, and then they would fire through little tiny things. And if you fire them through, you would expect to see on the other side, like another piece of paper you have on the other side, right, one and two patches where the gaps were on the other piece of paper, right? You'd expect to see one and two little indents. Like let's say you're firing paintballs through. If you've got a piece of paper or a wall with two holes in them and you're firing paintballs at the wall, right, where the two holes are, paintballs will go through, and on the other wall behind that, you put another wall behind that, you would see two patches of colour, right? So I just want to make sure you fully get this because this is real deep. So you've got two walls. The first wall, the wall that's in front, you put two holes in it. Then you stand back and you shoot paintballs. And if you're a good shot, you can get them through the holes each time, but sometimes you're going to miss, and it's just going to hit the wall. But anyway, the first wall, some paintballs will actually go through, and if you're a good shot, heaps of them will go through, and they'll hit the second wall, right? And on that second wall, you should see two patches that line up with where the two holes were, right? You get what I mean? Like you're not going to have a patch here and then a patch right in the bottom left corner, like not anywhere lined up where the hole was. I mean, how the hell would paintball get there? So you have two patches, right? Well, with this quantum thingo, right, they would shoot these little photon thingos, and basically you wouldn't get one or two, you wouldn't get two patches, right? This is called a double slit experiment. You wouldn't get one or two patches where the splits were, which is what you would expect. There should just be one or two patches, right? Because you're shooting them off. You leave the machine going for an hour and it goes choo, shoots one, choo, shoots two, shoots three. You would expect there to be two patches of color, right? On the wall, the back, right? But what they find is one patch. Now, how does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense. So they call it quantum physics because it's almost a whole different science, because they're saying on the quantum level, normal physics doesn't apply. Classical physics, like I pick up a tennis ball and throw it and then it falls down, like they come up with mathematical rules to map that. They say normal physics doesn't apply, and so we have quantum physics, a whole different physics. So what happens is you go into Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole funky world, when you look at the little quantum particles. Doesn't make any sense. People are like, what the fuck is going on? It blows the scientists' minds because they're like, no, why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense. And it is because classical physics is actually wrong. It's not correct. It is just it's just how things appear in this matrix, but the real truth behind the real physics is actually the quantum physics. Shouldn't even have to have the word quantum in front of it. It should just be called physics. This is how things actually work. And how things actually work is the impossible is possible. It's funky, it's bizarre, things don't make sense. You get what I mean? I'm standing here, right? I've got tennis balls and I throw them at a wall with a hole in it, right? 2 holes in it. I'll say it again because you got to get this. 2 holes in the wall, right? And some of those balls will get through those holes and then put a dent on the wall behind it, right? Well, after doing that for like an hour, we should go and look at that wall and see 2 dents that line up with where the holes were, because that's like, it went through the hole and it went and then hit the thing behind it, right? But they see like 1 dent in the middle, not even lined up with where the holes are. What the hell is that? And then they also have other experiments where they shoot 1 particle and then 1 particle is in this location and then is suddenly in that location and then it is in 2 locations at the same time. Now, if you're holding an apple, how can that apple ever be in 2 locations at the same time? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The apple's here. You know what I mean? How can an apple switch to here and then suddenly pop to here? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So it's quantum physics, right? And it's Alice in Wonderland, and it's funky and it's bizarre. But it's how things really work. And this is why stuff like postulates are possible. Because we just don't know how, like according to postulates, right? According to classical physics, there's no way you can just make something pop and appear. Or there's no way you can make something that's over there suddenly pop and appear over there. Instantly. That's impossible, right? But the reason why postulates can work and that we have all these funky things happening, right? And the reason why Scientology is true is because quantum physics is actually correct. And these things are actually possible. You can just have a postulate and pop, something can appear there and something can appear there. And you can travel faster than the speed of light and all this stuff. The world is this full-blown magical place. Now, I think what this quantum physics is it's trying to find out how the matrix functions, how this computer game functions. I think we're in a 3D computer game, and by them looking in further and further and further, they're getting to the point like where they see the pixels, like when you're looking closer to a screen and then eventually it just becomes this bizarre thing or whatever. So it's like you see here a teapot and you look further into it, then you get into the pixels, and then you're like, whoa, what the hell is this? And it's made up of magicalness or whatever, because it's some sort of 3D hologram. Like, do you know how they show that that 3D hologram of Michael Jackson dancing or whatever? And it looks like he's really there in real life and dancing. Well, I think that is us starting to work out how the actual Matrix works and how you can create things in the Matrix. And that everything is like a better version of that 3D Michael Jackson dancing, and that's why we have a solid teacup. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as in, like, they've invented this Michael Jackson dancing hologram thing. And by the way, on another topic, some people think that it was actually a hologram that hit the towers in 9/11, right? Because they've got the technology, so they projected an airplane, and then it went, and as the hologram hit the tower, right, they set off bombs, and it looked like a plane exploded, but it was actually a hologram, right? It wouldn't surprise me if that's true, because they're so advanced with their technology. I mean, they've met up with aliens and shit, and they've been getting given this amazing technology. Anyway, so we've got this with Michael Jackson. You're looking at the primitive form of the 3D hologram technology, right? Well, give it 1,000 years or whatever, like the same as, you know, the first car was just a crappy little shack that had a little engine and just rolled along, right? But it still was a car, could get you from A to B. But now you got like an amazing Ferrari, right? Anyway, when you're looking at this teapot I'm holding onto, right, this is the Ferrari of the 3D hologram. This is what happens when you keep on taking the Michael Jackson dancing thing. You keep on taking that and improving it so that actually it's physical. And, you know, I imagine, you know, you can put your hand through the Michael Jackson dancing. This, you can't put your hand through it. You actually touch it because it's been so perfected, and it has smells, and it has weight. It has all those things. So they've really evolved the 3D technology, and we're getting to the point now where we are like the beings who created this matrix, where we can actually make things. So what we're looking at is everything is like a virtual reality. And when we're looking into it in quantum physics, and you've got the super microscopes going on, they're looking deep into something, they're seeing the truth about that object and how it's actually just like a energy moving around. And it's just like it's not what it seems to be. Like, you look at a screen and you see like a tree on the screen, and then you get closer and then you see it's pixels and it's not actually a tree at all. Well, that's what it's like with these things. Like, you go in further into it and you look into quantumness and you go, wow, this actually isn't anything physical at all. This is actually just like an energy thing. And I think some people, when they take hallucinogenic drugs, they open up some sort of spiritual, or they open up some sort of awareness where they see things like electronically. And this sometimes happens in Scientology when people have winds in session, like some really out there winds, and they touch something and suddenly it crumbles, and like something that's metal becomes soft. And it's like, what the hell's going on? Or everyone sees energy everywhere. Like, I think Alan Stanfield, who I interviewed ages ago now, is actually one of the first people who I interviewed. I think he said he had a win of where he saw the matrix, like he saw everything as energy. And like, I think people have said they have experiences like that on hallucinogenic drugs as well. It opens up some sort of ability where you can see the real hologram it is. And I've done hallucinogenic drugs before, and I remember I was going like this, waving my hand, and it was literally, I was like, whoa, this is so interesting. I was waving my hand and it looked like, and things around me looked like it as well, but it was more as I was moving my hand because it was so close to me, and because I was moving it, it could, like, I guess, mess with the matrix, right? But it looked like I was in a 3D computer game. Because I've tried it once before. I've actually put on the goggles, and and it was like maybe it was a cooking thing. Actually, I was just like, it was a little kitchen, and I was wearing the 3D goggles, and I was picking up stuff and putting them in the kitchen, and it's really funny, right? But you know how things in computer games or whatever, they look like electronic or something, like in the arcade games or something. Like they have a certain look to them. And when you move something fast, it goes a bit blurry and it messes with it, because obviously maybe the computer can't load fast enough or something. Anyway, so when I was on hallucinogenic drugs, it was ayahuasca actually, I was moving my hand like this, and it was like it was in a 3D computer game, like it was sort of blurry, and my hand just looked like it was computer and electronic, and the whole experience I had was all electronic. It seemed like, whoa, it had a definite, like, Mario Kartness to it. The whole thing, all electronic and 3D. Anyway, it's really interesting. But it's just really interesting what's going on and stuff, and it's really wild. So I think I just wanted to say that I guess we're in a matrix, and there's full-on mainstream. Well, I don't know if it's mainstream, but it's like top academic scientists that are saying that there's parallel universes and stuff, and there's so much more going on. And I reckon I'm personally living proof of, like, the Mandela effect and this sort of stuff. And I mean, when I was making the podcast, when I was reading out Captain Bill's debrief, I mean, that was a different debrief to what I read 2 years earlier, you know. So I'm switching parallel universes. And I haven't, interestingly enough, I haven't come across anything of Hubbard's that's different. But it's kind of hard as well, because I got exposed to the church's Hubbard, and then in independent Scientology you get the original Hubbard. And so, you know, even if I did come across any sort of changes, I'll just be like, oh, where's this? Like, it would be hard to work out if it was anything to do with the Mandela effect, because his writings had just been messed with. But something like that video I was telling you about, and the Captain Bill's debrief, that wouldn't get changed. And if it was going to get changed, OSA would then put bad stuff in it and try and confuse it and stuff. But it didn't have any of that. It was just literally like it was a different version of it. Essentially the same ideas and stuff, had a bit more data, a bit more specific with the names and stuff. It was interesting. But yeah, I really recommend people to look into the Mandela effect and find out, I guess, if you're experiencing these changes as well. I had happen the other day, and I think quantum physics will explain these things, how postulates can work, but I went to go edit something, right? Like, I wanted to go edit something, right? For the first time. And I clicked on the editing program on my computer, and it popped up, and the thing that I was wanting to edit was already in there. And you might say, Andy, maybe the day before you put it in there or whatever, and we're going to start it, but you didn't start editing it. No, I mean, I just don't remember doing that. I don't remember putting it in there. I remember specifically the other day I opened my computer up and I was like, okay, I'm going to get around to starting to edit that thing. And then I went to open the program and it was already in there. Because what I had to do was drag and drop, but I didn't have to drag and drop. It was just already in there. And I was like, oh, this is weird. It was like, because I guess as I was opening up, I had in my mind the thought, this is how I think this works with postulates and stuff. I had it in my mind that the idea that this thing will, I guess I had the idea that I'm going to put this thing in here as the program was opening. And somehow, because of the quantum physics and shit, that became reality. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. It was already in there. You know, and I think that my thoughts made that happen. And maybe I really intended that, right? And then I switched into a parallel universe where that was the case or something. Or, because I'm not totally sure on this whole switching parallel universe things, but it could just be how postulates work, like as in, it just allows magic to happen. Like my mind can actually affect the computer, and I'm sure OTs have. I'm sure that OTs have mentioned it in interviews I've done in the past, where this sort of stuff actually happens. That their intention changes what occurs in the computer. And I had happen years ago. This is one that I'm really certain about. Was that I was listening to an album in iTunes, and it got to the last song, and when I heard that it was the last song, I was listening to an LIH lecture. Anyway, I desired that I knew I was on the last track or whatever, and when I heard it starting to end or something, I desired something to start, I wanted something else to start playing. Like I just had the thought in my head, like, oh, you know, I want this to start playing, but the computer I don't think was near me. And I just thought nothing of it. I was just like, oh, it's ending. Oh, I want to hear this thing now or whatever, or something like that. And then that thing started playing. And I was like, oh, that album was ending, and it should have just ended and stopped, because that's how the iTunes program worked. I had an album open, it goes through the tracks, and then when it finishes, it stops. But it stopped and then automatically went to the exact thing that I desired to start playing. And so the strangeness of that was that the track was supposed to stop playing. It wasn't supposed to play anything else. And even if it was to continue playing, out of all the things there were on the computer, it randomly was exactly what I thought. And so then what I did, right, this is what was so good about this example, because I knew it was a postulate, because I could prove it, right? I played the track again, and I was like, okay, let's wait to see what happens when it gets to the end. And it got to the end, and guess what? It just stopped the way it's supposed to. And so I was like, yeah. When that thing, my desire for that track to start playing, when I had that desire or that thought, it literally made that happen. So that was, to me, that was real evidence. That was really great evidence. So your mind, so basically, it's like the Matrix movie where you can, if you become so amazing like Neo, you could just use a computer without even touching things with your hands. You could just think and things would move and things would open up and stuff. And you could walk around the universe like that. You could be getting a coffee or something, and you could have the desire, and a staff member just starts making a coffee and is like, oh, I was just daydreaming, why am I making a coffee? And then I rock up and go buy coffee, and they go, oh, we already have one made. Susie just randomly made a coffee because she was just in a daze, and she just made a coffee. And I was like, yeah, that was my thought that did that. You know what I mean? But I don't know. This reality is so much more deep. Like, for example, when I started wearing a certain crystal around my neck, kept on seeing like 11:11 everywhere on clocks and stuff, and I suddenly had really good timing with things. Like I would arrive just when, you know, the line was free, or I would arrive just as something is beginning. And it's like, how the hell is that possible? And Chris Shelton can go on, and stupid skeptics can say, that's ridiculous, you just had a bit of good luck. for the first few days you were wearing the crystal. And it's just like, no, this was happening for ages, for like months after wearing this crystal, and it happened heaps. Like, I mean, I was arriving to things on time and seeing 11:11 on clocks everywhere. What's the odds that I would randomly look up? Like, I wasn't intentionally keeping my eye out for 11 o'clock and going, oh, it's 11 o'clock, I should check the clock. Oh, it's 11:11. Chris Shelton, you idiot. Right? I wasn't doing that. I would just be walking around, just be casual glaring, oh, 11:11, and oh, look at that car number plate, oh, 11:11, or oh, look at that. Like, I would just be walking, just notice things, and I would just notice 11:11 everywhere, right? I mean, I know that this stuff's true. I mean, until you have that happen to yourself, you don't believe it. So why, like, how did somehow magically these things happen? I mean, it's just bizarre. Like, it's because it's just some sort of computer game, and in a computer game, magical things are possible. You can just write anything into the computer game, you know? There's also the instance of these Qi. Have you heard of these Qigong or Qigong or Qi? These Qi masters, these Chinese energy masters, and they can put their hand through walls. They really can. And I've heard stories about Scientologists doing it, so it doesn't surprise me. But they can put their hands through walls. They can actually put their hand like through the wall of a jar, pull something out of the jar, and then pull their hand through, and then be holding on to it. And what's really cool as well is it can be an alive thing, apparently. They can put their hand into a jar, grab a bug, pull it through, and then the bug's still alive. And it's like, whoa, how do they do that? They can manipulate the matrix. It's just amazing. They can also, I mean, you hear about people who can walk on fire and stuff. And they can also catch bullets, where this is where the Matrix movie is just true. They can catch bullets. I'm not joking. They do whatever they do to prepare, and they do years in training to become masters, and then they can put their hand, and then someone can shoot. From what I saw, it wasn't like a super big shotgun. It was like a pellet gun or something like that, and he had his hand there and shot, and it should have been something that would stab into your hand, and then he'd show his hand, and his hand's fine, and he's just caught the bullet. So like, this is just like, you can really do this stuff. Anyway, so I think that's all I want to say, but if anyone's got any comments about where Hubbard talks about parallel universes or alternate realities, write it in the comment section. And if I was you, I would just watch as many things on Mandela Effect as I could and find out if there are Mandela effects that you've had happen. But hold on, oh, sorry, this is why I want to mention this thing, yeah. So, the reason why the Mandela effect to me indicates that there's parallel universe versions of us is because let's say there was one thing, I remember there being speed humps near my stepdad's house, and I remember saying to my mum, like, this is when I was first finding out about the Mandela effect. I remember saying, like, what happened to all those speed humps that were near the house? And she said that they were never there. And I was like, yeah, they were. She was like, nah, there've never been speed humps there. And I was like, well, I mean, I remember there being speed humps there because I remember having to drive over them, and they were annoying because they made it like, this road, you didn't want speed humps on it. It's better not having speed humps. And I imagine that they put them there because they didn't want people not taking shortcuts, because they tend to do that in Melbourne. I don't know if they do that in other cities. But in certain streets, they try and turn certain streets into not main roads. And so they put speed humps along them. And of course, the people living along those roads are happy about that because they don't want traffic going down there, because no one wants to live on a main road. That's actually really crap. By the way, if you ever thinking about living on a main road, I don't recommend it. I think you don't get fresh air, and also the constant just noise in the background. I think it stops you from sleeping properly and stuff. Anyway, so I was like, okay, I remember years ago there being speed humps on this road, right? I remember going over them. And it was a drainer, and I remember going over them in a car with my mum. You know what I mean? Like, and other people going along this road, running over the speed humps. Now my mum's telling me that there was never speed humps there, and she was pretty certain of this memory. She's like, no, there's never speed humps there. And she would know, because that's something that, you know, because she was living in that house, right? She was living in that house with my stepdad, and she's the sort of person who would complain about speed humps. You know what I mean? So she would certainly know if there used to be speed humps there, because she would go, yeah, there used to be speed humps there. That was so annoying. It's so great that they removed them. But she didn't say that. She goes, no, there was never speed humps there. So, so that to me indicates, right, that when I was driving along in that universe where there were speed humps, I was talking to a parallel universe version of my mum. And now I'm in this universe that has no speed humps, and now I'm talking to a different parallel universe. I'm talking to a parallel universe version of my mum. I'm talking to a different mum. This isn't the one that I was used to. I mean, it's so similar. The only thing difference is the speed hump thing. And maybe there's more things that I just can't remember. Maybe there's suddenly, she's like, I like Earl Grey tea or something, and I was like, oh, okay, and I just never thought anything of it. I probably thought at the time, I thought you hated Earl Grey tea, but I'll just forget it, because why the hell would I remember that? I'll just think, oh, I must have remembered wrong. But there could be actually differences between the parallel universe versions of my mum. Like, there could be more than just that one change that you notice. And that's why I think you should have your eyes open out, eyes and ears open for these things. Don't just think, oh, I'm remembering wrong. Think, hold on a second, what if I've switched into a different universe? So I think the Mandela effect is blowing the lid off the truth about parallel universes, and that there really is other universes with you and me in them. And because if quantum physics or whatever says, or the many worlds theory says, that every time you make a decision, you branch off into another universe. So some point someone decided to, I don't know what happened with these speed humps. But at some point, when they decided to put in the speed humps, there was a split. A universe with the speed humps, put it in, and then a universe without the speed humps put in. And it's gone off and split. So now there's two of them. And I've switched from one to the other. Weird. And that could be an act of postulates, because, like I said, I didn't like the speed humps. So what if I had the desire, oh, I wish they moved these speed humps, or something like that? And then I drive down the street and I notice that the speed humps aren't there, and I think that the council just removed them. But I'm in a new parallel universe where they never existed. That's how you get your postulates to come off. This might be the mechanism of how postulates work, is what I'm trying to say. Because Hubbard never really said how postulates work. He just said it just happens. Doesn't he? He goes, He goes, with your intention or consideration, you change the mesh universe or something. Or he says, what does he say? Postulates or considerations just change the mesh universe. Well, yeah, that's what happened. Like, that's what you see happen, but he doesn't go into descriptions why. He doesn't actually say how that really occurs. And what I could be talking about here is the actual mechanism of what's really happening. You desire, oh, I don't like those speed humps, I want them gone, or whatever. And you really think it, and then just, well, it's not like you have to put an effort, but I guess you just have a pure, clean thought without, I don't know, background music going on, or like upset from something that happened hours earlier. So you just have this clean thought. You're in a normal state of mind, you have this clean thought of no speed humps, and then just you like you wake up, or you're suddenly now in the parallel universe version of yourself where that is the case. I don't know. I think that there could be something to this, you know. So I think that's all I want to say. I mean, I did notice that the whole Mandela effect thing in the past year kicked up a whole new notch for me when I noticed multiple changes. So when I first became aware of the Mandela effect in like 2016, it was like I was aware of Sex in the City, then I was aware of like the speed hump thing. I was aware of specific instances of changes. But what happened a year ago, I realized, wow, hold on a second, I'm noticing whole changes to things. Like I'll be reading something and there's numerous changes. I'll be watching a movie and there's numerous changes to the movie. It's not just one line in the movie. It's like, whoa, this is almost a different movie. You know what I mean? That's why it makes it kind of interesting watching that video I was telling you about and other things, because you're like, oh, I'm getting different data now. This is kind of cool. So when you're listening to me, this is what's kind of cool, because when you're listening to me, you're listening to someone who is traveling between parallel universes that's collecting more data because he gets to hear different versions of things. You know what I mean? That's kind of cool. I get to say, hey, I heard the one from this parallel universe and this parallel universe, and I've got more info on that. And this is why it's crazy, because it's like, I can't give you accurate information, because now I'm going off my memories and stuff, and I'm from different parallel universes. So when I'm telling something, I could just be wrong. Like you could say to me, I could start talking about, I don't know, some movie or something in one of these podcasts or something. And I could say, oh, that movie, oh, there were so many scenes with the Queen in it. Oh my God, right? But that was in the parallel universe that I was from. In this universe, that's not the case. So you could go and check that up and be like, oh my God, Andy is actually a bad source of information. There's not lots of scenes with the Queen in it. And I'm like, well, sorry. I mean, this is fucked. I can't give you accurate information. Serious. I mean, I can't vouch for any of the information because I don't know what has changed, right? And all I can say is that I'm going off... I'm saying that I'm no longer a reliable source of information because of the Mandela effect. It stuffed up my ability. And I was aware of this anyway when I was studying history, because I'm aware of the Mandela effect, and I think I became aware of this a year ago. But I was just like, hold on a second, this could account for why, if the Mandela effect is occurring to people and stuff, this could account for when you try and look into Jesus, or you try and look into something from the past, there's just all these different stories as to what really went on. And it's like, I'm interested in history. I want to find out the actual truth about the Japanese War or something, you know what I mean? I want to know what actually happened. And there's all these different multiple accounts. And yes, we're going to have that on Earth because we've got low-tone people who can't see reality and they twist things into their own aberrations to align with their own aberrations, and they say wrong accounts. So you got that to deal with. And then there's also the situation where whoever wins the war says what the truth is about what occurred during that war, right? Always remember that. That's a really big one. That's a really big one. You know, you got to look into World War II. I mean, that's just wild. But, so you got that to contend with. So I understand that it's always going to be hard trying to work out what happened in history. But I think here on Earth, when you try and work out history, I think it is just so bad and so difficult to work out what actually happened. It's a dog's breakfast, and I think what makes it such a dog's breakfast is because the actual Mandela effect is happening and people are switching into alternate universe versions, and then you got Jimbo saying, nah, there was 10 million that died, and then he's from a parallel universe and he's popped into this universe, he's not even aware of that, and in this universe 10 million didn't die, so some other guy's going 10 million didn't die, and it's just like, it's an absolute mess. So it's wild. But when I noticed, actually, yeah, it was about 10 months ago, when I noticed the Mandela effect had reached a new level for me. It was actually kind of cool. I've mentioned this before, but I'll just say it for this video because I'm covering this topic, but it was just so cool. I was at my dad's house and I was watching a documentary that I'd already watched. I wasn't actually watching it. Someone else was watching it, but I was just there in the room. And the documentary was playing, and I remember I asked my dad, I was like, you know, we've already seen this before, haven't we? And he was like, yeah. And we were playing for my sister, and so you know, I was cool to have it in the background because I remember it was kind of a funny documentary. And then I was watching it and I was like, what the hell? I mean, it was just totally different. Like, well, I wouldn't say they were totally, I was like, this is just, it was like a parallel universe, bizarro world version of it. It was an alternate universe version of it. It had more songs in it. It had different scenes. Before the ad breaks came in, it had like a voiceover that was like, coming up, blah, 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 blah. And the other one didn't have that. And here's the thing. You might say, oh, Andy, they've edited it and re-released this documentary or something. We were watching what my dad recorded on the cable TV hard drive. So it originally went to air in like July. He recorded it. And we watched it in July. Then he plays it back a few months later for my sister. So we're getting the same recording on the hard drive, but the documentary is not the documentary that I originally watched. It was more jazzed up. It was, to me, what I noticed was that I was like, this is as if a different person produced this documentary. The same documentary used the same people, but it was like it was edited, I think maybe there was editing, it was edited by a different editing person, and they put in cool songs and they just jazzed it up, and they were just like, they made it more out there. And we're watching it, and I mean, it was just like, whoa, you know, I was like, wow, this is cool because I'm experiencing the Mandela effect right now, but this is on a whole new level. This is a whole thing has changed. I am watching a different universe version of this documentary. And, you know, I mean, until you have it happen to yourself, you're not going to, I guess, believe it. But I reckon it happens to people more than what they're aware of. They're just thinking that they're wrong in their thoughts. Because, I mean, even when I was sitting there with my dad, right, because he's a wog, and I would say of the more unaware, I'll probably say a low awareness amongst the wogs. So it was really low awareness. And he was watching it and he didn't really pick up on, like, he doesn't know about the Mandela effect, but he didn't pick up on that there was much of a difference. But I tell you what, I did say to him, because I wasn't going to bring up the whole Mandela effect because it was going to open up a whole can of worms, and I just sometimes it's just like these things are so deep. It's just like, what am I going to do, you know? And I just thought I'll just keep to myself and won't talk about this experience I'm having with the Mandela effect. And this is what happens a lot when you become more OT and more spiritual. You just get to a point where you can't quite communicate to wogs as much, and it just drops off because it's just like, I don't know, you're just going to bore them to death, I guess. I mean, I remember there's someone I know who's a lawyer, and he talks a lot of lawyer stuff, and I noticed that he sort of bores people because he just goes into this whole world of talking about lawyers, and people don't understand him and don't follow along, and it's just like, I don't think people appreciate it. So I think if I just randomly just drop all these things and stuff to people, and I think that they'll just be like not understanding, be like, what's going on, and they'll just think it's ridiculous, and I think I might just annoy people. But anyway, so but when my dad was watching it, his certainty of watching this documentary before was a bit wobbly. Like, I was like, have you watched this before? And he was sort of like, yeah, I think so. But like, as in, I was like, do you know, because I asked him one or two odd questions to see if he was picking up on that the Mandela effect was happening, right? Because I was interested. And I honestly reckon that when he was like, oh yeah, I think so. Like, I think that he was a bit confused, but then just ignored it and went on watching it. I honestly perceived a bit of confusion in him as well, where he was like, because the reason why I was saying, have we seen this before? Because it seemed new, right? But he was like, yeah, I've seen it before, but I could tell was sort of like, but it seems different or whatever. Like, I sensed in the way he was answering my questions that he was picking up that there was something not right about this documentary that we'd watched before. And it seemed to him like maybe I haven't seen this before, right? So, but he just, you know, he doesn't have high awareness, and it's too much for him to confront. So, I mean, he just sort of has these little thoughts like, oh, this seems a little bit, but then just ignores it, right? So he doesn't end up finding out that he's experiencing the Mandela effect. He just experienced it. He had an instance of experiencing the Mandela effect, but just wasn't aware that it actually just happened to him. So I think a lot of people are going on in life and they're having these little instances where things seem not quite right, or and they just ignore it and go on, and they just think they cannot believe that the universe, that they can switch into a parallel universe version. Not only are they not aware that the parallel universe even exists, they just find it like wild to think that they popped into a different parallel universe version. It's just so like their idea is that the physical universe is boss and it's unchanging and it can't just magically change or whatever. So, I must just be thinking, I must be remembering wrong. I'm recognizing that this seems like I haven't seen it before, but I must just have a bad memory and then just ignore it. And that's what they do. But I look into it further, and you can go on the internet and find evidence of all these Mandela effects and these alternate universe versions of things. Like, you'll see the movie line change, but then you'll see written on a book somewhere the old version. So like, it's like universes have molded, and there's bleed through of evidences of the changes of the older versions. So it's not just memory. And I think memory alone is enough, because there's too much memory indicating that something's going on. But if you're one of these people like Chris Shelton, who's a sick pervert, who's low-toned, right, who just loves mess, and mess is their only reality, right? There is mess out there that backs up the Mandela effect, and that these changes are happening. You can find the mess that backs it up. So if you need to go to mess for your evidence, you can get it, you know. But I'm saying between mess and between people's memories, there's definite evidence of parallel universe versions. I think the real truth about people who can't confront these things, and these scientists that are like low-toned like Chris Shelton, they hold back our whole society because they're skeptics and they're intellectual cowards. So I would have the guts to walk into that scary cave. They wouldn't. They'd sit back and be like, ah. I would have the guts to like try magic mushrooms because I'd be like, oh, that seems like an interesting experience. What's going on? I heard interesting stuff about it. I'll give it a go. Yeah, cool. Wow. You know what I mean? But they'll go, magic mushrooms, no, scared. Any sort of change, anything just different. Like, oh, I won't walk down that cave. I won't go on that. I won't go for a trip there. Oh, everything. They're scared of everything. So they just stick to their little box that they're in, their self-made box, doing the same thing. Right? These cowards, right? Well, the thing is that intellectually, the same thing happens. There's physical universe cowards, but there's also intellectual cowards where they're not willing to go down thought adventures and go down rabbit holes and stuff. Hence why you won't get Chris Shelton listening to the podcast, because there's nothing physical universe going on about the podcast. It's not a dangerous cave that you don't uncertain about. Oh, scared walking down the cave, a lion might get me. You can just listen to the podcast and it's just talking. But the ideas are scary. It's like, hold on a second, what? The CIA is doing this and oh, what? Like, oh, hold on a second, there's parallel universes and oh, what? Hubbard might be right and like the I don't know, the Vatican has their own intelligence department. Like these are things that scare them intellectually. So what do? They avoid them the same way they avoid going on a bushwalk because they're scared of something happening. They avoid listening to the podcast, so Chris doesn't listen to the podcast. And these one mainstream scientists that are holding back a whole society, they're studying and they're researching certain topics, but they're scared to entertain that idea. Oh, parallel universes. Oh, no, that's ridiculous. And they just stay away from it because it scares them, because it shatters their reality. They see someone mentioning the Mandela effect and they go, oh, that's just someone remembering bad. And they don't even investigate it. They don't look. They don't look in the cave. They just see a little bit of it in the distance and then they walk away. They go, oh, they see enough to recognize it's scary and they walk away. They'll never admit that they're scared. They'll never say that they're intellectual cowards, but they are intellectual cowards. They are. And that's what's holding them back, because I've noticed this in a person. I've actually seen their behavior, a specific person. I've seen how their behavior in the physical universe is of a coward. And then I can see how when I bring up certain intellectual things, they treat it in a similar way where they're like, oh, that scares me. And when I first found out about the Mandela effect, I was like scared. I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on? This is freaking crazy. Like, it scared me. My initial reaction was scaredness. But I could confront it, harden up and study it more and actually understand it, and now it no longer scares me and I think it's cool. But I initially was scared when I first found out. I was like, what the fuck? It's like your whole universe is collapsing. What the hell's going on, you know? So these people, they see the cave at the distance and then Andy says, hey, let's go for a walk down the cave. No! And they just get scared and they run away from it and they go, no, and they come up with some silly excuse. You say to them, hey, would you like to try like Scientology? Like, oh! No. They're actually walking around like these scared cowards. These are the fucktards, these disgusting people who are messed up and retarded, right? Because the thing is that I don't mind being scared, but just be honest about it. You know what I mean? They're not even aware they're scared. If they just said, look, that scares me. Oh, I don't want to hear about Mandela effect. It scares me. I'll just say, okay, fair enough. But they don't say that. They go, no, it's ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. They come up with these excuses because they're not willing to admit that they're cowards. I don't even think they're aware that they're cowards. They're such cowards they're not even aware of it. Right? But these people are holding back our whole society because they're the fucktards that are in universities. They're the fucktards that are on the mainstream magazine articles and stuff writing out false science, and they're holding all our sciences back and all this stuff, and they're picking on their skeptics people. They're having these skeptic societies and shit. They're picking on the leaders who are trying to sprout out and shoot up and make us evolve to new levels and come up with new ideas and stuff. They're attacking them, saying, oh, this guy's crazy, oh, he's a nut job, he's wrong, he's blah, blah, blah. And they're attacking them and stuff, trying to bring these people down just because they deep down are just absolute pussy cowards. So that's why I have a personal hatred of them, because they keep society back and they make things like, they stop things from evolving. Like, if we didn't have cowards for scientists, then we would be learning about parallel universes in schools. This is if it's true. I'm not 100% sure, okay? This is if it's true. We would be learning about it in schools and it would just be a normal thing. It would be like, oh, so this is what's going on, and school would be so interesting. But what you get is you get these boring, incorrect physics being taught at school because of cowards, basically. And so, anyway, fear is definitely a very bad thing. Anyway, so, I hope you like this podcast. Keep your eye out for things. Don't be an intellectual coward. Be willing. I don't know, it's actually, I guess just do things that cure fear in you. That's the main thing. I think fear is the main thing from the bank. And when I had a moment of when I think I might have experienced what it was like to go clear, or where I separated from my mind or something, I had a cool spiritual moment. I've talked about it before. The overall feeling of it was a lack of fear. That is what it was. I don't think the right word to say is no stress. I don't think the right word to say is no negative thoughts or something. The right word to say is no fear. That is the best way I'll describe it as. And maybe that's what clear is. And when I go clear one day, then I'll be able to say, yes, that's what it is. The bank gives you fear. It makes you scared and worried, Suddenly it's like, instead of just being like, hey, cool, it's like, right, scared, worried, you know what I mean? That's what the bank is, and that's why you do Scientology, because you get rid of it. And it's a really cool feeling, because you just walk around, you're like, oh, I feel so relieved. You're like, nothing worries me. I'm not worried about anything. I have no fear. That's what it is, right? So that's what I think badness is. And I think that's all I have to say on this topic. Oh no, but what I was going to say is what I realized when you, and I imagine people realize this when they go clear, is that you are carrying with you fear all the time. It's just on a low level. And only when something actually scary happens do you go, oh, I'm scared. But people are actually walking around in a permanent state of fear. And speaking of these ones I'm talking about, they are in a permanent state of fear that they're not even aware that they have, right? It's just normal for them, and they think that their behavior and their perverted, wrong science ideas is normal. That's just all from their fear. If they went clear, they would go, oh my God, I was freaking scared as all the time before this. Whoa, this feels amazing right now. I mean, I didn't realize how stressed I was walking around all the time. Well, for people like you and me who aren't as degraded, because I'm assuming you're not degraded because you're watching these videos, we're walking around, we still have some of that fear unless we're gone properly clear. We don't have as much fear as a 1-1, but we still have fear to a certain degree. And when I've had those moments of separating from that, I was like, wow, yeah, I really am just carrying fear with me all the time. And you can get rid of it, and it feels absolutely awesome. And I also realized this one time when I got particularly keyed in from objective process. Obviously something flared up in my case, and I felt like anxiety, and I felt like dread, and I felt the bank turn on, and I was like, whoa, this is actually like, this is what I recognized. I was like, this is what I feel. I felt really bad, but I was like, this is what I feel like all the time, but just inflated and flared up. And I was like, wow, I'm experiencing the bank. I was like, I can feel this. This feels horrible and crap, and this is going to go away. And I just wrote it out for the rest of the day as I was feeling bad. But when I'm walking around in general life, I have this going on, a bit of this feeling all the time going on. This badness, this bankness, this shitness, this anxiety. And I guess the anxiety is fear because you're worried about the future, right? And it turned on from this objective process very heavily, and it made me go, whoa, hold on a second. Wow. So I've got this shit feeling all the time. I wasn't even aware of it. And it can go away. Like I imagine, so with auditing, you can get that feeling to go away. But basically I was just aware that all the time I'm feeling shit. And I was like, wow. And as I've evolved and gotten more uptone and more improved, the amount of fear and the amount of feeling shit has gotten less and less and less and less and less. I wouldn't say it's totally gone away. But when I had that moment where I totally, at the spiritual moment, when I totally separated and possibly went clear, that was like that was when it was cured. It was like that went away officially. It wasn't just there a tiny bit. It was like it was gone. Felt so amazing. It was just the most amazing thing ever, and that inspired. When I realized that could be clear, I was like, wow, I've got to try and go clear, because if that's what clear is, and that's so cool. Or maybe that's something you experienced after doing OT3 or something like that, but that was just like, whoa, it just felt so amazing. So, yeah, the problem is we get used to these things, we don't realize we're scared all the time. And we don't realize we're feeling a bit of anxiety all the time because we just become immune, like used to it. I think it must be like, I guess, having stiff shoulders. Say someone's not looking after them health-wise or whatever, not looking after themselves health-wise, they have stiff shoulders all the time. And they're not aware of it. They just go along in life and they just have stiff shoulders. Then one day they actually get their shoulders fixed up with like a good Chinese medicine practitioner or some shit. And they're like, whoa, my shoulders are like normal, and whoa, like they feel fantastic. Whoa, I had crap shoulders. I didn't even realize my shoulders were crap. That's what it's like. You don't realize it until it goes away, and then you're like, whoa, I actually had a problem going on. So when I had this objectives thing and this anxiety turn on, it was like I had stiff shoulders, but suddenly they become really stiff, and I was like, oh, whoa, yeah, this is like extra stiff. And like I noticed, wow, I actually have stiff shoulders in general. It's really interesting. Anyway, thanks for listening to this podcast. I've been your host, Andy, Ultra Space Cowboy. And until next time, remember, what you thought was impossible is possible, and quantum physics proves it. Ni hao.